Hello, and happy National Fair Housing Month. Welcome to the Fair Housing Act Common Violations and Solutions Training for 2024. This training is approximately an hour and a half in length. Under the GoToWebinar platform, you will find several dashboard items. This includes the viewing screen. You will see at the top, it will state whose screen you are viewing and will allow you to zoom in or screenshot the items you see on the screen. The webcam function should be disabled. Go to Webinar Dashboard and Control Panel. You can set up the dashboard to include the screen that is being shared and the GoToWebinar Control Panel, or you can move it to another window if you have multiple screens. The GoToWebinar Control Panel is where you will control your audio, review any attached handouts, and ask any questions. Today, we have 3 handouts in the handout section of the GoToWebinar Control Panel. These handouts include the Fair Housing Accessibility Guidelines, the Fair Housing Act Design Manual, and the workbook for today's training. GoToWebinar knowledge check questions. During the webinar, we will be conducting knowledge checks. The GoToWebinar platform calls these quick polls. When we launch the polls, they will automatically appear. To select your answer, click the circle next to the answer and hit submit at the bottom. GoToWebinar certificates. For attending at least 45 minutes of today's presentation, you will receive an attendance certificate. If you attend for less than 45 minutes, you will not receive an attendance certificate. The attendance certificate will be sent to you on Wednesday. If you take the final quiz, which will be available at the end of today's presentation, and pass the quiz, you will receive a passing certificate. The final quiz was in the reminder emails and will be in the email that comes to participants 2 hours after the end of the webinar. You may take the quiz at any time following this training, and passing certificates will be immediately issued for a score of 80% or higher. Agenda topics and learning objectives. Today's agenda includes an introduction, topics, and learning objectives to help you identify common violations and best practices to meet or exceed Fair Housing Act design and construction requirements. The terminal learning objective, or TLO, is identify common design and construction violations and solutions. Our topics and enabling learning objectives, or ELOs, are as follows. Topic 1, Fair Housing Act protections. ELO, understand the protections of the Fair Housing Act. Topic 2, measurements make the difference. ELO, identify design practices that exceed FHA specifications and prevent violation liabilities. Topic 3, requirement 1, accessible building entrance on an accessible route. ELO, identify solutions to common violations found on an accessible route. Topic 4, requirement 2, accessible and usable public and common use areas. ELO, identify solutions to common violations in public and common use spaces. Topic 5, requirement 3, usable doors. ELO, identify solutions to common violations related to usable doors. Topic 6, requirement 4, accessible routes into and through the covered unit. ELO, identify solutions to common violations found on accessible routes within covered dwelling units. Topic 7, Requirement 5, light switches, electrical outlets, thermostats, and other environmental controls in accessible locations. ELO, identify solutions to common violations related to mounting controls. Topic 8, Requirement 6, reinforced walls in bathrooms for the later installation of grab bars. ELO, identify solutions to common violations with reinforced walls in bathrooms. Topic 9, Requirement 7, usable kitchens and bathrooms. ELO, identify solutions and common violations for FHA compliant kitchens and bathrooms. And then we will follow that with the live Q&A session, the knowledge check review, and then we'll close the training and you will be able to take your quiz. This training relies on the provisions of the Fair Housing Act and its regulations, the Fair Housing Accessibility Guidelines and the supplemental questions and answers, the American National Standards Institute, ANSI, A117.1, 1986, and the FHA Design Manual for the guidance it provides about compliance with the technical design and construction requirements in the Act. Today's presenters include Mr. Eric Contreras, Mr. Michael Dyson, and Ms. Crystal Nolan. Mr. Contreras has 20 years of experience performing accessibility consulting services, Americans with Disability Act or ADA compliance evaluations, implementation plan development, ADA corporate policy guidance and interpretation, and ADA compliance reviews. During the live Q&A session, Mr. Contreras will answer your questions, which you can type in the questions pod. Mr. Dyson has several years of experience facilitating webinars, workshops, and live events, and looks forward to assisting with this training. And I'm Crystal Nolan, and I have worked in education, media, and advocacy for over 20 years, and I'm also pleased to assist with today's training. Today, technical support will be provided by Ms. Corey Nolan and Ms. Alexia Brown. Ms. Jean Godwin will be standing in for Liz Dyson and will organize your questions for the question and answer portion of today's presentation. The Fair Housing Accessibility First program provides a design and construction resource center, also known as the DCRC, which is staffed Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Eastern. The DCRC provides comprehensive and detailed instructions, helpful online web resources, and an information line for technical guidance and support. You can reach the DCRC toll-free at 888-341-7781. You can also reach the DCRC by email at fairhousingfirst@hud.gov. And now we will go into topic 1, Fair Housing Act protections. Fair Housing Act history. On April the 11th in 1968, Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act was enacted, also referred to as the Fair Housing Act or FHA. This legislative milestone prohibited discrimination in public and private housing based on color, national origin, race, religion, and sex. In 1988, Congress amended FHA coverage to prohibit discriminatory housing practices based on familial status and disability. As a result, FHA building and design standards ensure homes are accessible and equally available for all, including individuals with disabilities. This year marks the 56th anniversary of the efforts of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and other supporters who organized to have then President Lyndon B. Johnson sign the act into law. For more information about the protections of the FHA, scan this QR code or visit HUD's website. FHA safe harbors. The FHA does not establish a single accessibility standard. Architects, designers, and builders must choose a standard that provides a safe harbor for building projects. A safe harbor is a recognized objective standard that, if followed without deviation, ensures compliance with the FHA's design and construction requirements. There are 15 HUD-approved safe harbors. For a list of HUD-approved safe harbors, scan the QR code or visit the Frequently Asked Questions page on HUD's website. And now, Michael, we have reached our first knowledge check. I'm going to send it to you.
Thanks, Crystal. For our first knowledge check, in 1988, FHA coverage was amended to prohibit discriminatory housing practices based on disability. First option is true, and the second option is false. So let's go ahead and launch this poll. And again, this knowledge check reads, in 1988, FHA coverage was amended to prohibit discriminatory housing practices based on disability. First option is true, and the second option is false. All right, I'll give folks a few more moments to get their selections in. All right, I'm going to close that poll. Thank you so much. And go back to you, Crystal, for the takeaways.
Thank you, Michael. Key takeaways. In 1968, the FHA outlawed public and private housing discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. In 1988, FHA coverage was amended to prohibit discriminatory housing practices based on disability. A safe harbor is an objective and recognized standard, guideline, or code that, if followed without deviation, ensures compliance with the FHA. And there are 15 HUD-approved safe harbors. Now let's move along into topic 2. Measurements make the difference. But let's talk about fair housing complaints first. Fair housing is a valuable asset to our nation's communities. However, recent data revealed that some housing developments missed the mark when aligning with the FHA. In fact, 33,007 fair housing complaints were filed in 2022, and that was up from 31,216, a difference of 1,791 in 2021. Discrimination based on disability accounted for more than half, 53% of complaints filed. Accessibility noncompliance. Noncompliance with the FHA is considered a violation of the law. Whether the violation is accidental or intentional is irrelevant. Intent is not required to show a violation of the FHA. Designing above minimum requirements. Approved safe harbors establish minimum requirements to guide the development of covered dwelling sites. Accessibility is often measured in inches. Inches can make the difference between compliance and non-compliance. Even minor deviations that reduce minimal limits can make a unit completely unusable or create a risk of injury to people trying to enter or use a unit or site. Designing to exceed requirements can increase maneuverability and clear floor space measurements and will ensure compliance and surpass accessibility expectations. This type of proactive design and construction is beneficial to the 25% of the US population who live with disabilities. Avoid liability. Stay informed from start to finish. It is vital that all the members of a project team follow FHA specifications through all the stages of work. An individual or entity need not be involved in both the design and construction phases to be liable in the case of a violation. Architects, builders, owners, and others can be held accountable, incur penalties, and be responsible for expensive retrofits. Now let's talk about the 7 dwelling accessibility requirements. HUD's technical assistance was developed into 7 accessibility requirements for the guidelines. These requirements establish the minimal levels of accessibility mandated for covered dwellings. They provide scope and specifications to guide decisions for the planning, development, construction, and management of dwellings covered by the Fair Housing Act. The 7 requirements are: Requirement 1, an accessible building entrance on an accessible route. Requirement 2, accessible and usable public and common use areas. Requirement 3, usable doors. Requirement 4, accessible routes into and through the covered unit. Requirement 5, light switches, electrical outlets, thermostats, and other environmental controls in accessible locations. Requirement 6, reinforced walls in bathrooms for later installation of grab bars. And requirement 7, usable kitchens and bathrooms. Well, it's that time again. It's time for our next knowledge check, Mike.
Thanks again, Crystal. For the second knowledge check, the architect designs the plan, which the builder uses to pour the walkways. Who may be liable for a slope violation? First option, builder only. Second option, architect and builder only. And the third option, both and others. So go ahead and launch this poll. And again, this knowledge check reads, the architect designs the plan, which the builder uses to pour the walkways. Who may be liable for a slope violation? First option, builder only. Second option, architect and builder only. And the third option, both and others. All right, give folks a few more moments to get their selections in. All right, thank you so much. Go and close that poll and go back to you, Crystal, for the key takeaways.
Thank you, Michael. Approved safe harbors establish minimum requirements to guide the development of the accessibility in covered dwellings. Designing exceeding the requirements can increase maneuverability and ensure compliance, offering greater accessibility. An individual or entity need not be involved in both the design and the construction phases to be liable for a violation. Architects, builders and owners, and others can be held liable, incur penalties, and be responsible for expensive retrofits. The 7 requirements developed for the guidelines provide scope and technical specifications to guide design and construction decisions. And that brings us now to topic 3, requirement 1. And requirement 1 of the FHA mandates that all covered multifamily dwellings have at least one accessible building entrance on an accessible route, unless it is impractical to do so because of the terrain or unusual characteristics of the site. There are many ways to violate this requirement, such as a non-continuous path, obstructions on the path, or failing to include elements and spaces that should be connected. Let's look at 2 common violations of this requirement and their solutions. Common violation 1, steep cross slope. A common violation of requirement 1 specifications relates to inaccessible routes due to incorrectly designed and poured cross slopes. In the image on the screen, note the level reads 5.2, and this slope is not FHA compliant. However, there is a design solution. Specifications for accessible routes may be found in ANSI 4.3 accessible route. A key specification for an accessible route is cross slopes may not exceed 1 to 5, which is approximately 1/4 inch per foot, or 1 to 48. Cross slopes must be designed with no more than a 2% slope. It is recommended that designers specify a 1.5% cross slope as tolerance to provide a margin of error for grading and pouring during construction. Now, common violation 2, steep running slope. Another common violation is a curb ramp with a running slope that exceeds the maximum allowable 8.33%. The level in the picture shows the running slope is 9%, which is too steep for compliance. The design solution, the maximum running slope of an accessible route is 1 to 20. Slopes greater than 1 to 20, up to 1 to 12, are allowed, but they must comply with the ramp provisions in ANSI. Running slopes should be designed with the least possible slope and are recommended not to exceed 7% as a tolerance to provide a margin of error during grading and pouring during construction. Michael, now we're ready for our 3rd knowledge check.
Thanks again, Crystal. For the 3rd knowledge check, running slopes should be designed not to exceed blank. The first option, 8.33% or 7% recommended. Second option, 9%, or 8.33% recommended. And the third option, 8.5%, 8% recommended. So go ahead and launch this poll. And again, this knowledge check reads, running slopes should be designed not to exceed blank. The first option, 8.33%, or 7% recommended. The second option, 9%, or 8.33% recommended. And the third option, 8.5%, or 8% recommended. All right, I'll give folks a few more moments to get their answers in. All right, go ahead and close this poll. Thank you so much. Go back to you, Crystal, for the takeaways.
Thank you, Michael. Requirement 1 of the FHA mandates that all covered multifamily dwellings have at least one accessible building entrance on an accessible route. A key specification for an accessible route is cross slips may not exceed 1 to 50, which is approximately 1/4 inch per foot, or 1 to 48. Cross slopes must be designed with no more than a 2% slope. It is recommended that designers specify a 1.5% cross slope as tolerance to provide a margin of error. The maximum running slope of an accessible route is 1 to 20. Slopes greater than 1 to 20 up to 1 to 12 are allowed, but they must comply with the ramp provisions in ANSI. Running slopes are not recommended to exceed 7% as a tolerance to provide a margin of error. 8.33 is the maximum allowable slope. Now, topic 4, requirement 2. The second requirement of the FHA provides accessible and usable public and common use areas. Public and common use areas are all parts of the housing outside individual dwelling units, which includes amenities such as parking lots, storage areas, recreational areas, lobbies, and laundry areas. Now let's explore 2 common violations of requirement 2. Common violation 1, incorrectly mounted restroom fixtures. Fixtures in public restrooms are required to be accessible. However, accessories like mirrors, paper towel dispensers, soap dispensers, and coat hooks may be mounted too high or low. Wall-mounted objects should not project more than 4 inches from the walls when mounted between 27 inches and 80 inches. In the picture shown, note that the soap and paper towel dispensers protrude more than 4 inches from the wall, and their mounting height is 68 inches. The design solution. Restroom fixture mounting deficiencies can be avoided by addressing specifications during the design phase. Designers must recognize the following technical specifications. Grab bars must be mounted between 33 inches and 36 inches, but it is best to specify them at 35 inches to allow a margin of error. Mirrors must be mounted with the bottom reflective edge no higher than 40 inches above the finished floor. Paper towel dispensers, soap dispensers, coat hooks, and other accessories must be mounted no higher than 48 inches above the floor. Specifying them at 44 inches ensures compliance with the requirements. Common violation 2, inaccessible gate latches. Often, gates to common use areas are inaccessible by people with disabilities, so they can't access swimming pools, tennis courts, enclosed dumpsters, playgrounds, and other gated areas. The design solution. Common standards for gate latches include placing them so that their operable parts are no higher than 48 inches above the ground level. However, some standards allow a higher height of 54 inches above the ground level at gates to swimming pools. Latches should be operable with one hand and not require grasping, pinching, or twisting. Clear floor space should adjoin the gate area to allow it to be opened so a person using a mobility device can access the gate, open it, enter it, and pull it closed. It's time for our fourth knowledge check. Michael, it's on you.
Thanks, Crystal. For our fourth knowledge check, a gate latch for a pickleball court on a covered dwelling site should be no higher than 48 inches above the ground level. The first option is true, and the second option is false. So we'll go ahead and launch this poll. And again, this knowledge check reads, a gate latch for a pickleball court on a covered dwelling site should be no higher than 48 inches above the ground level. First option is true, the second option is false. We'll give participants a few more moments to get their selections in. All right, go ahead and close this poll. Thank you so much. And go back to you, Crystal.
Okay, thank you again, Michael. Key takeaways. Requirement 2 of the FHA provides accessible and usable public and common use areas. Fixtures in public restrooms are required to be accessible. Grab bars must be mounted between 33 inches and 36 inches, but it is best to specify them at 35 inches to allow a margin of error. Mirrors must be mounted with the bottom reflective edge no higher than 40 inches above the finished floor. Paper towel dispensers, soap dispensers, coat hooks, and other restroom accessories must be mounted no higher than 48 inches above the floor, but specifying them at 44 inches ensures compliance. Gate latches should be mounted no higher than 48 inches above the ground level, and when permitted, no more than 54 inches above the ground for gates to swimming pools. Moving right along to topic 5, requirement 3, usable doors. Usable doors allow passage within and through the dwelling unit and through secondary exterior doors. Secondary doors include doors that lead to private decks, patios, and balconies. All usable doors must provide a nominal 32-inch, which actually measures 31 5/8 of an inch of clear width space. Accessible doors are doors in public and common use areas and primary entry doors of covered dwelling units. For accessible doors, there is no nominal tolerance. They must meet more stringent requirements for accessibility than usable doors. Common violation 1, passage doors not wide enough. Often the space necessary for passage through usable doors is not provided. This impedes the use of the unit and does not afford people who use wheelchairs and mobility devices the clearance needed to travel through the doorways within the dwelling environment. The design solution. Because of normal installation practices, adjacent conditions, variations in products such as hinges, and thickness of available materials, the doorway may vary from the 32-inch clear width by a nominal or small amount. It is important to design tolerances of 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch for an acceptable range for usable doors. Most 34-inch doors hung in a standard manner do provide a nominal 32-inch clear opening. Now, for this violation, there is also a construction solution. So if this already happened and you need to correct it on your build site, you can. When this type of violation occurs in the interior of dwelling units, residents or landlords can adapt the nominal 32-inch clear opening to create a wider and more usable doorway by installing offset or swing clear hinges, removing the lower portion of the door stop, or doing both. With standard hinges, a door, when open, remains in the door opening. But swing clear hinges allow a door to swing completely out of the doorway and increase the clear opening of the door. Common violation 2, lack of maneuvering clearance at a usable door. When a door does not have the appropriate maneuvering clearance, a person using a mobility device cannot use the door because there's not enough space to maneuver around the door. The design solution, ANSI provides minimum specifications for maneuvering space at doors. The size of the clear floor space varies depending on how a person in a wheelchair or scooter approaches the door. And it ranges in size from 36 inches by 48 inches to 60 inches by 72 inches. A key maneuvering space requirement is a minimum 18-inch clear floor space on the pull side of the door. This allows someone to position themselves to the side so they are outside of the door's swing as it is opened. Michael, back to you for Knowledge Check 5.
Thanks, Crystal. Knowledge Check 5 reads, usable doors must provide a blank clear width. The first option, nominal 32 inch, which when measured is 31 5/8 inch. Option 2, minimum 34 inch. And the third option, nominal 30 inch. So go ahead and launch this poll. And again, this knowledge check reads, usable doors must provide a blank clear width. The first option, nominal 32 inches, which measures to 31 5/8 inch. Option 2, minimum 34 inches. And option 3, nominal 30 inches. All right, I'll give folks a few more moments to get their selections in. All right, go ahead and close this poll. Thank you so much. And go back to you, Crystal, for the takeaways.
Thank you again, Michael. Requirement 3 covers usable doors. Usable doors must provide a nominal 32 inch, which is 31 5/8 of an inch of clear width. For usable doors, specify at least 34-inch wide doors with an acceptable tolerance of 1/4 of an inch to 3/8 of an inch. To create a wider and more usable doorway, install offset or swing clear hinges, remove the lower portion of the doorstop, or do both. For accessible doors, a key maneuvering space requirement is a minimum 18 inches clear floor space on the pull side of the door. And now we have reached topic 6, which is requirement 4. Requirement 4 is accessible routes into and through the covered unit. And under the FHA, requirement 4 specifies that all premises within covered multifamily dwelling units contain a 36-inch wide accessible route into and through the covered dwelling unit. This 36-inch accessible route allows a person using a wheelchair to make a 90-degree turn in and out of nominal 32-inch doorways. The accessible route must pass through the main entry door, continue through all the rooms in the unit, adjoin required clear floor spaces at all kitchen appliances and all bathroom fixtures, and connect with all secondary exterior doors. It is critical that changes in the floor levels within a dwelling unit are minimized. Even small abrupt changes of level in the surface of an accessible route pose a tripping hazard for many people and can be a significant obstacle for people using wheelchairs. People who walk with braces and or have difficulty maintaining balance are particularly susceptible to catching their toes on small changes in level. Common violation 1, threshold too high. A common requirement 4 violation includes units with primary entry thresholds exceeding maximum height. The picture shows a door threshold that measures more than 1/2 inch. The design solution. The guidelines specify that the primary exterior entrance landing to a ground floor dwelling unit must be designed with no more than 1/2 inch below the finished floor of the unit if the landing is made of impervious material like concrete. At the primary entrance, if the landing is made of pervious material like wood decking, it must be flush with the finished floor. Replacing thresholds with low profiles can address changes in level at the primary entrance. Common violation 2, vertical floor level change. When thresholds inside dwelling units exceed the maximum vertical height of a 1/4 inch or maximum beveled height of a 1/2 inch with a slope no greater than 1 to 2 at a change in flooring material, this violates the act. The picture shows a vertical floor level change of 1.5 inches. Now, the design solution. When the interior of the dwelling unit, thresholds should not be used, or they should be thin and installed flush with the flooring surface. In single-story units and on the primary entry level of multi-story dwelling units in buildings with elevators, the maximum vertical floor level change allowed is a 1/4 inch. When a tapered threshold is used, the maximum height is a 1/2 inch. Notice there is no vertical floor level change in the example shown. And Michael, back to you for our 6th knowledge check.
Thanks, Crystal. For our 6th knowledge check, the maximum vertical floor level change allowed is 1/4 inch. And when a tapered threshold is used, the maximum height is 1/2 inch. First option is true, second option is false. Go ahead and launch this poll. And again, this knowledge check reads, the maximum vertical floor level change allowed is 1/4 inch. And when a tapered threshold is used, the maximum height is 1/2 inch. The first option is true, the second option is false. All right, I'll give folks a few more seconds to get their selections in. All right, go ahead and close this poll. Thank you so much. And back to you, Crystal, for the takeaways.
Thank you again, Michael. Requirement 4 specifies that all premises within covered multifamily dwelling units contain an accessible route into and through the covered dwelling unit. Replacing thresholds with low profiles can address changes in level at the primary entrance. In a dwelling unit, thresholds should not be used, or they should be thin and installed flush with the flooring surface. The maximum vertical floor level change allowed is a 1/4 inch. When a tapered threshold is used, the maximum height is a 1/2 inch. Moving right along, topic 7, requirement 5. Light switches, electrical outlets, thermostats, and other environmental controls in accessible locations. ANSI specifications for accessible controls and operating mechanisms require a clear floor space to allow an approach by a person using a wheelchair. They specify the height of the operable portion of the control and make sure that it requires little or no force to be exerted to operate the control. The guidelines do not require controls to be fully accessible, but they specify that light switches, electrical outlets, thermostats, and other environmental controls operated regularly or frequently in the daily use of a dwelling unit be in accessible locations. Common violation 1, controls too high or too low. Switches, electrical outlets, and other controls placed too high or too low are inaccessible to some users. The design solution is mounting heights are allowed up to 48 inches, but are recommended to be placed at 44 inches for increased access. The guidelines require electrical outlets be mounted no lower than 15 inches above the finished floor. When a typical duplex outlet is used, both receptacles must be 15 inches above the floor. Common violation 2, controls in corners over countertops. In a kitchen, an electrical outlet is mounted on a wall over a cabinet without knee space and less than 36 inches from the corner. And you can see that in the picture on your screen. Now, the design solution to reach controls and outlets mounted over base cabinets that lack knee space, a person using a wheelchair must be able to make a parallel approach to the cabinet and execute a side reach. HUD permits the use of a standard 24-inch deep cabinet with an additional extension of 1 to 1.5 inches for countertops for a maximum depth of 25.5 inches. The Fair Housing Act Design Manual specifies electrical outlets on walls over cabinets must be a minimum of 36 inches from a corner to be accessible by a person using a wheelchair. All right, Michael, it's that time again.
Thanks again, Crystal. For our 7th knowledge check, controls are recommended to be placed at blank, which is roughly the maximum reach height for increased access. Your first option, 15 inches. Second option, 44 inches. And the third option, 54 inches. So we'll go ahead and launch this poll. And again, this knowledge check reads, controls are recommended to be placed at blank, which is roughly the maximum reach height for increased access. The first option, 15 inches. The second option, 44 inches. And the third option, 54 inches. All right, give folks a few more moments to get their selections in. All right, go ahead and close this poll. Thank you so much. And go back to you, Crystal, for the takeaways.
Thank you, Michael. Requirement 5 mandates that controls operated regularly in the daily use of a dwelling unit be in accessible locations. Control mounting heights are allowed up to 48 inches, but are recommended to be placed at 44 inches for increased access. When a typical duplex outlet is used, both receptacles must be at 15 inches above the floor. Electrical outlets on walls over cabinets must be a minimum of 36 inches from a corner. And now we'll move into topic 8, requirement 6, reinforced walls in bathrooms for the later installation of grab bars. The guidelines do not require that grab bars be installed in bathrooms and covered dwelling units. However, the guidelines require that bathroom walls be sufficiently strong to allow for later installation of grab bars for resident use. This requirement applies to all bathrooms and powder rooms when the powder room is the only toilet facility on the entry level of a multi-story dwelling unit in an elevator building. Information about the reinforcing in bathroom walls should be permanently mounted in dwelling units. The type of reinforcing should be described, where the reinforcing is located, and suggestions for the most effective method for installing grab bars. These notices should be laminated and posted to the inside of a linen closet door, or perhaps the inside of a utility or a water furnace closet. So, comment violation 1, insufficient reinforcing for a bathtub. Due to the insufficient reinforcing around the back wall, grab bars cannot be secured adequately to the wall to support the installation. I'm sorry. Let me go back to that. Due to the insufficient reinforcing around the back walls, grab bars cannot be secured adequately as they are to be installed according to FHA specifications. So the design solution when the reinforcing in the walls is insufficient is the 24-inch and 48-inch reinforced areas specified for tubs in the guidelines should be enlarged to provide full support for mounting plates and horizontal bars. Now for the side walls, ANSI A117.1, the 1986 version, specifies the lowest permissible position of the grab bar is 33 inches above the room floor. For the back wall, the lowest allowed position for the grab bar is 9 inches above the tub's rim. Common violation 2, insufficient reinforcing for toilets. In the picture that you see, there's no reinforcing in the wall behind the toilet or behind where the toilet will go. The picture shows the rough-in plumbing for a toilet fixture in a covered dwelling unit. And again, like I said, if you look closely, you will see that the required reinforcing between the wall studs is missing. This bathroom is not FHA compliant because there's no reinforcing to support the later installation of a grab bar behind the toilet. The design solution is, it is important to include reinforcing inside bathroom walls at toilets for the later installation of grab bars. Grab bars are critical for many people with mobility impairments to safely transfer on and off the toilet. The guidelines specify that reinforcing at least 6 inches wide by 24 inches wide long, 6 inches wide by 24 inches long, capable of supporting grab bars, be provided behind and beside toilets. The minimal areas to be reinforced are adopted from the 1986 ANSI A117.1 standard. However, a designer or a builder should increase the reinforcing area to ensure compatibility with various grab bar designs. And with that being said, Michael, we're at knowledge check 8, and I'm going to send it back over to you.
Thanks, Crystal. For knowledge check 8, which option is preferred when installing reinforcing in bathroom walls? Your first option, enlarge reinforcing. The second option, reduce reinforcing. And the third option, eliminate reinforcing. So let's go ahead and launch this poll. And again, this knowledge check reads, which option is preferred when installing reinforcing in bathroom walls? Your first option, enlarge reinforcing. The second option, reduce reinforcing. And the third option, eliminate reinforcing. All right, I'll give folks a few more moments to get their selections in. All right, go ahead and close this poll. Thank you so much. And back to you, Crystal, for the takeaways.
Thank you again, Michael. Requirement 6 provides for the installation of reinforcing in bathroom walls to permit the later installation of grab bars. The 24-inch and 48-inch reinforced areas specified for tubs in the guideline should be enlarged to provide full support for mounting plates and horizontal bars. For the side walls, ANSI A117.1 1986 specifies the lowest permissible position of the grab bar is 33 inches above the room floor. For the back wall, the lowest allowed position for the grab bar is 9 inches above the tub rim. The guidelines specify that reinforcing at least 6 inches wide, excuse me, at least 6 inches wide by 24 inches long be provided behind and beside toilets. And increasing this area of reinforcing will ensure compatibility with various grab bar designs. Our next topic is topic 9, requirement 7, and we'll start with usable kitchen. Requirement 7 of the guidelines specifies requirements for usable kitchens. Usable kitchens, as defined in the guidelines, provide maneuvering space for a person who uses a wheelchair, scooter, or a walker to approach and operate most appliances and fixtures. Common violation 1, no 30-inch by 48-inch clear floor space parallel to and centered on the kitchen sink. The guidelines require a 30-inch by 48-inch clear floor space parallel to and centered on the kitchen sink unless the sink has ANSI compliant knee space beneath. With this violation, there is no knee space and the clear floor space is insufficient for a parallel approach. For example, the kitchen sink shown in the picture is too close to the adjacent cabinet front. There is no adequate space for a seated user to use the fixture safely. The design solution. In this case, to meet the requirement, there would need to be 24 inches from the center line of the sink to the face of the adjacent cabinet, or a cabinet that provides knee clearance that is 27 inches high by 30 inches wide needs to be installed. Common violation 2, U-shaped kitchens, reduced 60-inch turning space. A refrigerator or range in a covered dwelling unit impedes the 60-inch turning space required in a U-shaped kitchen. And you can see on your screen that that measurement of the space in that kitchen is coming in just short of 57 inches. So now let's talk about the design solution. A 60-inch diameter turning circle is required in a U-shaped kitchen with a sink, range, or cooktop at its base. And that does not include the door handles. The door handles are excluded from that measurement. This turning diameter is necessary to provide adequate maneuvering space for a person using a wheelchair to approach and position themselves parallel to the appliance or fixture at the base of the U. The guidelines permit U-shaped kitchens with a sink or cooktop at the base of the U to have less than 60 inches between the legs of the U only when removable base cabinets are provided under the cooktop or under the sink. A clearance of at least 40 inches is required in those cases. One design solution is replacing the appliances with narrower appliances. In a U-shaped kitchen with a sink or a cooktop at its base, another solution may be providing knee space underneath a sink or the cooktop, so the distance required between the opposing base cabinets, countertops, and appliances is reduced to 40 inches. Requirement 7, usable bathrooms. The guidelines also provide specifications for bathroom designs that make it possible for people who use mobility aids to maneuver in and safely use bathrooms in covered dwellings and common use areas. Though not fully accessible when designed to comply with the guidelines, usable bathrooms provide a person who uses a wheelchair, scooter, walker, or other mobility aid to enter the bathroom, close the door, use the fixtures, and exit. Common violation, a toilet too close to the wall. The rough-in plumbing for a toilet fixture in a covered dwelling unit reveals a 14-inch center line where the toilet will be installed. And that's what's shown on your screen. Now, the design solution, it is essential to ensure that the toilet's center line is a minimum of 18 inches from the adjacent wall to comply with the FHA. A measurement of at or near 18 inches will best accommodate a grab bar and the shoulders of a person who may be seated on the toilet. Notice that the toilet shown is compliant and its center line is at 18 inches. It should be noted that other safe harbors will vary from an absolute requirement to a range of allowable distances. Now, there's also a construction solution if the toilet is too close to the wall. So when a toilet is not installed with its center line at 18 inches, there's a solution that doesn't involve extensive plumbing changes. An offset flange can be installed that allows the toilet to be secured after moving it to the right or left, whichever is necessary for compliance. And Michael, Time for our last two knowledge checks, so I'm going to send it back to you.
Thanks, Crystal. For our 9th knowledge check, a blank diameter turning circle is required in a U-shaped kitchen with a sink, range, or cooktop at its base. First option, 57-inch. Second option, nominal 57-inch. And the third option, 60-inch. So go ahead and launch this poll. And again, this knowledge check reads, a blank diameter turning circle is required in a U-shaped kitchen with a sink, range, or cooktop at its base. Your first option, 57-inch. The second option, nominal 57-inch. And the third option, 60-inch. All right, we'll give folks a few more moments to get their selections in. All right, go ahead and close this poll. Thank you so much. And we'll go straight into our last knowledge check. Knowledge check 10, which reads, for compliance, an offset flange can be installed that allows the toilet to be secured after moving it to the right or left. First option is true, and the second option is false. We'll go ahead and launch this last one. And again, this knowledge check reads, for compliance, an offset flange can be installed that allows the toilet to be secured after moving it to the right or left. The first option is true, and the second option is false. All right, give a few more moments to get selections in. All right, go ahead and close that out. Thank you so much. And back to you, Crystal, for the takeaways.
Thank you. Requirement 7 of the guidelines specifies requirements for usable kitchens and bathrooms. For a parallel approach to the sink, there should be 24 inches from the sink's center line to the face of the adjacent cabinets, or a cabinet that provides knee clearance that is 27 inches high by 30 inches wide. A 60-inch diameter turning circle is required in a U-shaped kitchen that has a sink, range, or cooktop at its base. A toilet's center line must be a minimum of 18 inches from the adjacent wall to comply with the FHA. A measurement at or near 18 inches best accommodates a grab bar and the shoulders of a person seated on the toilet. Other safe harbors will vary from an absolute requirement to a range of allowable distances. When a toilet is not installed with its center line at 18 inches, an offset flange can be installed that allows the toilet to be secured after moving it to the right or left, whichever is necessary for compliance. And now we will move to the questions that have come in during today's training event. And all right, let's see. Our first question is from Vanessa. Are cabinet handles allowed to encroach in the 60-inch turning space? Eric? Seems like we may be having a bit of technical difficulty. Okay, well, per the FHA DM page 7.9, any appliances such as refrigerators and ranges, excluding the door handles that project beyond countertops and cabinets, must not encroach upon this 60-inch diameter turning space. Handles and controls are excluded from this measurement. And we'll go to the next question from Jana. It is my understanding ADA does not allow offset flanges. Can you address this? And if it needs to be considered for common and public use areas? The answer to that question, Jana, is this program cannot provide technical assistance regarding the FHA. This program can only provide technical assistance regarding the FHA, not the ADA. The ADA does not require, nor does it prohibit offset flanges. The ADA requires that water closets be mounted between 16 to 18 inches from the sidewall to the center line. For ADA questions, please contact the ADA at https://www.ada.gov/resources/. Let's see if we can take another question. Mario has a question. When the toilet is installed adjacent to a full-length wall where a grab bar can be installed, is the toilet still required to be installed 18 inches minimum from that wall, or should it be installed 16 inches minimum and 18 with an 18-inch maximum, since the grab bars will be installed on the wall? And the answer to that question is the Fair Housing Accessibility Guidelines, section 100.205 C3-4, requires that in locations where toilets are adjacent to walls or bathtubs, the center line of the fixture is a minimum of 18 inches from the obstacle. The FHA guidelines diagrams 7.8 require that where the toilet is next to a wall or a fixture, it must be centered at 18 inches. The FHA DM, or the Fair Housing Act Design Manual, also stipulates that the 18 inches from the center line of the toilet to the wall is an absolute measurement to accommodate a grab bar and the shoulders of a person seated on the toilet. If choosing a different safe harbor, it is necessary to follow it in its entirety, as ANSI A117.1 2009 allows installing the toilet between 16 inches and 18 inches. And our next question is from Fred, and Fred asks, must there be a 60-inch turning diameter in an outside balcony at apartments? And the answer is no. The FHA guidelines do not require 60-inch diameter for turning at balconies or other rooms, except in U-shaped kitchens that have a sink, range, or cooktop at the base. We have another question from Scott. What are the requirements for upper cabinets, height above floor, and distance from the edge of the lower cabinet? The answer, the FHA does not have any requirements for wall-mounted kitchen cabinets inside of covered dwelling units. Let's see, we have a few more questions. I do want to apologize. Our subject matter expert is currently experiencing some technical difficulties, so we're gonna still just move ahead. Okay, our next question is from Elizabeth. Are the push-pull clearances at doors to bedrooms required? And the answer is the FHA does not require maneuvering clearances for usable doors inside of covered dwelling units. There's a question from Carl, and that question reads, regarding topic 4, toilet accessory mounting heights, which portion of the accessory is the measurement taken to? The answer, the mounting height of toilet accessories is measured to the highest operable part of the accessory. We have a question from Patrick, and Patrick wants to know, is a window latch for an operable or openable window considered an environmental control? And the answer to that question is the FHA does not have any requirements for window operable parts. Now we have a question from Scott. And Scott would like to know, can a toilet be set farther than 18 inches away from a sidewall, or does it need to be exactly at 18 inches? The requirement says minimum 18 inches. So the answer to that question is the Fair Housing Accessibility Guidelines, section 100.205 C34, requires that in locations where toilets are adjacent to walls or bathtubs, the center line of the fixture is a minimum of 18 inches from the obstacle. The FHA guidelines diagram 7A require that where the toilet is next to a wall or fixture, it must be centered at 18 inches. The Fair Housing Act Design Manual also stipulates that the 18 inches from the center line of the toilet to the wall is an absolute measurement to accommodate a grab bar and the shoulders of a person seated on the toilet. If you choose a different safe harbor, it is necessary to follow it in its entirety, as ANSI A117.1 2009 allows installing the toilet between 16 to 18 inches. Now we have, I think we have time for maybe 2 more questions. Carl would like to know, regarding topic 8, does FHA require information about reinforcing to be permanently mounted in the unit, or is this just a recommendation? So the answer is the FHA requirement 6 requires blocking for grab bars. Providing information about the location and the type of reinforcing is a good practice, but no, it's not required by the FHA. And our last question, oh no, we have let's see, we have a few more. I think we have time for maybe 2 more. Let's see, Thomas would like to know, how high would a doorstop need to be removed to widen the door clearance? And the answer is the FHA guidelines require that accessible doors provide a 32-inch clear width, and usable doors must provide a 32-inch nominal clear width. And that is at least 31 and 5/8 of an inch. And that opening is measured between the face of the door and the opposing stop, with the door open at 90 degrees. So if the door stop is removed, it should be for the entire door opening. And let's see, we have a question from Thomas, and this will be our last question. FHA permits inaccessible outlets as long as accessible outlets are provided in the same area. How many accessible outlets are required in a kitchen area? Thomas would like to know. And the answer is there's not a minimum number of total outlets. However, if there is an inaccessible outlet, there should be an accessible outlet in the same area. For example, in a counter run. And we have one last question that just came in. We'll fit that one in, and then we'll move on to our knowledge check review. Randall would like to know, isn't the FHA guidelines requiring an absolute dimension? And so not really clear about that question. So Randall, if you would email that question to us at Fair Housing First at HUD.gov, that would be with some additional details. We could surely have that answered for you. But if you are asking about the toilet center line, the water closet has to be mounted at least 18 inches from the sidewall. And that is written that way because the toilet need not to be next to a wall, in which case it may be more than 18 inches from a sidewall if it's not closely adjacent to a wall. And so I would like to thank all of our attendees for their questions, very thoughtful questions. And now I'm going to return it to you, Michael, for our knowledge check review.
Thank you, Crystal. So we'll go ahead and go through our knowledge checks, starting with our first one. In 1988, FHA coverage was amended to prohibit discriminatory housing practices based on disability. And the correct answer for this was the first option. This is true. And 90% of you got this one correct. Moving along to our second knowledge check. The architect designs the plan, which the builder uses to pour the walkways. Who may be liable for a slope violation? And the correct answer for this is the third option, both and others. And 87% of you got this one correct. Moving right along, knowledge check 3. Running slopes should be designed not to exceed, and the correct answer is the first option, 8.33%, where 7% is recommended. And 89% of you got that one correct. Moving along, knowledge check 4. A gate latch for a pickleball court on a covered dwelling site should be no higher than 48 inches above the ground level. The correct answer for this was the first option. This is true. And 91% of you got that one correct. Moving along, knowledge check 5. Usable doors must provide and the correct answer was the first option, nominal 32-inch clear width or 31 5/8 inch when measured. And 93% of you got that one correct. On to knowledge check 6. The maximum vertical floor level change allowed is 1/4 inch. And when a tapered threshold is used, the maximum height is 1/2 inch. And the correct answer for this is the first option. This is true. And 95% of you got that one correct. Moving on to knowledge check 7. Controls are recommended to be placed at, and the correct answer was the second option, 44 inches, which is roughly the maximum reach height for increased access. And 94% of you got that one correct. Moving on to knowledge check 8. Which option is preferred when installing reinforcing in bathroom walls? And the correct answer for this was the first option, enlarge reinforcing. Yeah, 96% of you got that one correct. On knowledge check 9, and the correct answer was the third option, 60-inch diameter turning wheel is required in a U-shaped kitchen with a sink, range, or cooktop at its base. And 93% of you got that one correct. And then finally, our last knowledge check. For compliance, an offset flange can be installed that allows the toilet to be secured after moving it to the right or left. And the correct answer for this was the first option. This is true. And 96% of you got that one correct. So really good numbers on these knowledge checks, and good luck on your final quiz. And so now I'll turn it back to Crystal for our closing. Crystal?
Thank you again, Michael. Certificates. For attending at least 45 minutes of today's presentation, you will receive an attendance certificate. If you attended for less than 45 minutes, you will not receive an attendance certificate. The attendance certificate will be sent to you on Wednesday. If you do not receive the attendance certificate by Thursday morning, please check your junk or spam email. If it's not there, email us at fairhousingfirst@hud.gov. If you take the final quiz and pass the quiz, you will receive a passing certificate. The final quiz will be in the email that comes to participants 2 hours after the end of the webinar. Quizzes may be taken at any time following this training event, and certificates of passing are automatically issued when a passing score of 80% is achieved. If you do not receive your passing quiz certificate by Friday evening, please check your junk or spam email, and if it's not there, let us know. You can email us at fairhousingfirst@hud.gov. Training evaluation. You will be asked to complete a training event survey at the end of this training. We appreciate your responses and support in improving our training products. Contacts. Please contact us with further questions via the DCRC by calling 888-341-7781. And that number is accessible by voice or teletypewriter. Or you can email us at fairhousingfirst@hud.gov. Scan this QR code to add the DCRC's contact info to your cell phone's address book. We would like to thank the presenters, the technical support, the ASL interpreters, and of course, you, the participants. Please register for our next training event. We hope you have a fantastic day and an inspirational National Fair Housing Month. This screen will show for the next 20 seconds, so you can screenshot the info or scan the QR code. And again, thank you for attending.